I Hate the News is the weekly news bulletin from I Hate Politics podcast, a show about a human activity we love to hate. I'm Sunil Dasgupta. The week of April 9th, 2024, the Maryland General Assembly ends its 2024 session with a budget increasing vehicle fees. Washington, D.C.'s proposed budget pivots to policing and away from services. Colleges and universities further delay financial aid decisions because of data problems on the new federal financial aid platform. Maryland Comptroller Brooke Lierman with some hard words for UMBC for its Title IX violations, and more. Music for this episode comes from Baltimore area jazz musician Seth Kibel's album, Clarinet Flicks and Chill. Kibel on clarinet, flute, and tenor saxophone, Ellington Carthan on piano and keys, Christy McDonald on the electric guitar, Elliot Seppa on the double bass, and Joey Antico on the drums. You can find their music at sethkibel.com. We'll have more to say about the Maryland budget in future episodes. But for now, the House and Senate did work out a compromise that raised transportation-related fees. Vehicle registration, Uber, Lyft, and other ride-hailing services, a tax on that, electric vehicle surcharge, and a new tobacco tax. But budgets are moral documents. In Washington, D.C., Mayor Bowser, in a tight budget year, has added $100 million for extra policing, while cutting housing benefits and early child care support, both of which are expected to worsen the public safety situation. I spoke with Eduardo Ferrer of Georgetown University's Juvenile Justice Clinic.
This budget really focuses on increasing spending to react to harm while cutting investments that would prevent harm in the first place. We're seeing a $70 million increase to MPD's budget, a $6 million increase to the Department of Youth Rehabilitation's budget, which is the agency responsible for locking up children, and about a $25 million increase to the Department of Corrections budget, which manages the adult jails in the District of Columbia.
MPD is the Metropolitan Police Department.
That's correct.
Police. What human services in particular, and how big are the cuts?
We're seeing cuts with homeless street outreach. We're seeing cuts to transitional housing for young people, cuts to rapid rehousing for families and singles, cuts to the emergency rental assistance program, which families take advantage of. And we're not seeing as substantial of investment in the Housing Trust Fund, as well as no new housing vouchers for this upcoming year. The district is very concerned right now about both public safety and school attendance. So the lack of housing is a key driver in chronic absenteeism. Similarly, when we look at kids who end up in the delinquency system, 12% of them were homeless prior to their arrest.
To what extent do you think this is going to be rectified by the council?
I think the council is going to take a hard look at this budget and ask whether it's really a shared sacrifice. And I hope that they will make changes to better reflect that when you're asking tons of agencies to cut and at the same time significantly increasing public security agencies, there should be more of a balance there.
That's Eduardo Ferrer of Georgetown University's Juvenile Justice Clinic. By this time in the spring, high school seniors going to college would have made their commitments. But this year, many schools haven't been able to offer financial aid packages yet because the new federal financial aid platform continues to have teething problems.
In a normal year, we would be sending award notifications to admitted students by the middle of February. We're already in April, and I am hoping that we'll be able to get a small number of award packages out next week, but it's probably most likely looking like the week of April 22nd. Towson, College Park, Salisbury, UMES, a lot of our sister schools within USM, and we are all pretty much in the same boat and looking at, mid to late April.
That's Andrea Cipolla, Financial Aid Director at UMBC.
USM, as a group, all of our schools have delayed the decision deadline to May 15th. Most schools, they're not going to say, no, you can't commit after May 15th. We're still going to take them. But there's also a possibility that the chancellor will come back and say, we need to push this again. Maryland Higher Education Commission, the Office of Student Financial Assistance, has promised to start awarding state grants May 1st, but their priority deadline has already been pushed to June 1st.
I have heard that there are some students who are likely not going to start in the fall as a consequence of this.
And it's definitely possible. One of the most concerning trends that I've been seeing is that the FAFSA filing rates are so low.
How low?
We have received about only 70% of the FAFSAs we received last year at this time. And that's both on new student and continuing students. This week, actually yesterday, the Department of Ed announced that they're able to identify all of those applications that have errors. It's less than 20% of the total volume. But they're
What is the total volume?
So total volume is over 6 million FAFSAs that they have processed so far.
And 20% of them have errors.
Correct.
Wow.
If we just give them an aid package and they're eligible for aid this year, but next year these errors get fixed, these students aren't going to get the aid that they got this year. So they're making decisions on which school to go to based on erroneous information. And it would look like a bait and switch. We gave them all this money their freshman year, and their sophomore year they're getting nothing. So, a lot of schools were like, "This isn't right. We can't package these students."
Andrea Cipolla, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's Andrea Cipolla, UMBC's Financial Aid Director. More UMBC news, and it is worth reiterating that UMBC is my employer. The university just concluded a Title IX violation settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice over actions of its former longtime swim coach, Chad Craddock, who has since died by suicide, which was compounded by the fact that the university officials ignored complaints about the swim coach for a long time. The $4.1 million settlement had to be approved by the state's Board of Public Works, which authorizes state spending above a certain amount. And Comptroller Brooke Lierman, who sits on the board, had some really hard words to say. Here she's reading from the U.S. Department of Justice report.
The head coach kissed male athletes' necks, hugged them from behind, traced his fingers down their bare stomachs from their belly buttons toward their genitals, and massaged their bare skin. Page 6. Many students described a system where male student athletes faced a perverse choice: either succumb to the head coach's sexual advances, which came with more coaching, more competitive opportunities, and more leniency for rule violations, or decline the head coach's sexual advances and risk losing their scholarships, housing, their swim family, and other consequences. From page 9. From 2016 through 2020, multiple female student athletes experienced dating violence and sexual harassment at the hands of their male teammates. Athletic staff confirmed to the department that they knew of these instances of sexual harassment, but did not report them to the Title IX office, as they were required to do. Instead, they told only the head coach, as he had directed them to do. Female students also reported the dating violence and sexual harassment to the head coach, and in response, the head coach improperly attempted to mediate rather than report to the Title IX office. From page 10. During the winter of 2019, the head coach and other athletics department staff learned of an additional instance of dating violence by a male student athlete against his female teammate, and again failed to report it to the Title IX office. The abuse escalated over many months, and in the fall of 2020, the male student athlete physically assaulted the female student athlete in his off-campus apartment. Teammates who overheard the violent attack went first to the head coach, as he had instructed them to do. The head coach did not report to the Title IX office. Instead, he required the female student athlete to return to practice alongside her abuser with bruises and other physical evidence of the violent assault. This sent a terrifying but galvanizing message to the other female student athletes on the team. As one student stated, it became clear he would rather let a woman die than report up one of his favorites. One man exploited his unchecked power and control of these students' lives, but numerous individuals allowed it to happen. Students reported the coach's reprehensible behavior numerous times, and the adults charged with protecting our students repeatedly failed to live up to their responsibilities, and frankly, failed to live up to any sort of generally acceptable moral code. The failures summarized in the DOJ report emphasized that the university failed its students, failed them by not having appropriate measures or structures in place to protect them. This issue hits very close to home for me as a former student athlete and as a survivor of sexual assault as a college student. I never had to experience the kind of abuse that these students went to, but I think it's important to call out the trauma of having your institution, the school you choose, that you pay to attend, that you're on scholarship to attend, a school that you believe in, not take your claims seriously or understand how much your life matters. For these boys to be abused by their coach who was protected by the institution first, and for these girls to be abused by the boys on the team who were then protected by the institution. These wounds by the institution, this betrayal is profound. When I think back on what I went through all those many years ago, I remember the administrator who believed me, supported me, and advocated for me through that process. If UMBC had appropriately trained and held staff accountable, the students who were harmed would have received the support they needed and they deserved. Too many people failed to act and enabled reprehensible behavior, abuse of power, and a destructive culture that marred what should have been a transformative and positive time for a young person. I want to acknowledge President Shears Ashby. I appreciate you meeting with me multiple times and leading a transparent discussion around the challenges that you inherited at UMBC. I know that you've already begun making changes to the athletic program and the campus culture to ensure that the community learns from this dark chapter. President Shears Ashby, the DOJ report outlines the agency's findings. But can you talk a little bit about the known unknowns? My understanding is that the former head coach also oversaw, for instance, a youth swim club and various pre-collegiate swim camps. But this was not explored in either did the DOJ or the university's investigation. Do you know the full scope of the abuse? Will we ever? And whether minors could have been victims of abuse at the hands of the former coach?
Sadly, it is possible that we will never know the entirety of the abuse and discrimination perpetrated by the swim coach, or whether individuals experienced harm but saw the lack of appropriate response from the university and were dissuaded from reporting. But the DOJ investigation has shined a light on what we believe is the scope of what occurred in that time frame, as you note. We now understand well the culture that persisted for years, and we are addressing it head on.
Thank you.
That's UMBC President Valerie Shears Ashby in conversation with Maryland Comptroller Brooke Lierman at the Board of Public Works meeting, where the university's $4.1 million settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice over Title IX violations was approved. In the Maryland U.S. Senate race, David Trone was hospitalized over the weekend, and Angela Alsobrooks' campaign office in Silver Spring was broken into. Alsobrooks said that the campaign office was intentionally targeted. We often talk about the state of local media. The Commonwealth of Virginia became the first state in the United States to allow the publication of legal notices in online-only news outlets. Legal notices used to be a staple of classified advertising in local newspapers, and the loss of classifieds was a big blow to the business of local news. Online advertising is currently concentrated in the hands of 5 major players that include Google and Facebook. That's all for this episode. Be sure to tune in here at I Hate Politics this Friday for our big feature interview. I Hate Politics is produced by me, Sunil Dasgupta, and assistant producers Daniel Gallio, Katarina Gasek, and Catherine Amaya Escobar, with support from University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I direct UMBC's political science program at the universities at Shady Grove in Montgomery County, where, among other things, we explore and learn about politics, government, and society close to home. Music for this episode comes from Baltimore area jazz musician Seth Kibel. The songs are from his album Clarinet Flicks and Chill. If you want to share your music on the show or know someone else who might want to, please email us at producer@ihppod.org. See you next time.